Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Want to take a cheap clamp from Harbor Freight and make it awesome? Stay tuned. This is the Jorgensen 16-inch F-clamp. This is the typical clamp that everybody thinks of when it comes to woodworking or clamping any type of wood down. It basically goes from side to side, screws down, clamps your wood. Works amazing. The problem is this clamp by itself is $18 and it only goes 16 inches. This is the Pittsburg 24-inch aluminum bar clamp. This does way more than the Jorgensen does, clamps just as hard, and you get 24 inches of span. This clamp, $9.99 at Harbor Freight. So the issue is this clamp has the quality of a $9.99 clamp. This is way more durable, way more robust, but we can make this better. And we can make this better for pennies. So this is the 24-inch Pittsburg Bar Clamp. These are great for woodworking. One, because you can set them to any width you want, put them down on the bench and they lay flat and they stay just like this. It's not like an F-clamp where it just falls over. You can put 3 of these down and make panels out of them, clamp projects, great for making cabinets, whatever you want. They come in all kind of sizes. This 24-inch one I use constantly. I've got 5 of these and they're $9.99 a piece. Clamps are ridiculously expensive. These are cheap. The problem is because they're cheap, they're kind of cheap. So one of the issues that you get with long F clamps, like when you start getting an F-style clamp, like this Jorgensen one, the problem you get is when you span these long distances, you're clamping up a big box or something, or a big cabinet, whatever, you get a lot of flex in that bar. These bar style clamps don't really flex at all. Even this cheap one, you can't bend it. If it doesn't bend, why is this so cheap? Because it's just made out of cheap aluminum. It doesn't feel very secure. It does have some flex this way that you can bend it. And one of the issues is, you'll notice between the two, these have some rubber kind of feet on them to help protect your wood, where this is just metal. But Matt, you said you were making this great thing. Yeah, I am, but you know, people do shit before me. I don't come up with all these ideas myself. I know I look like this amazing intellectual that just comes up with shit out of my ass. But no, Paul Sellers, one of the most famous woodworkers on YouTube, uses $9.99 Harbor Freight clamps. Why? Because they're awesome and they're cheap. And he found a way to make them even better. So you can either go watch his video, which I suggest because it's awesome and he's probably a lot better at explaining this than I am, or you can continue watching this and maybe see that I screwed up or something and you can laugh. But you might say, you know what? No, Mateo, I love watching your channel and I want to get great woodworking tips from somebody who's learning themselves and not a seasoned 40-year professional. Cool, then stick around. So this is the 36-inch Pittsburg Bar Clamp. Ooh, look how long. I've got 10 of these bad boys. The problem why I don't use them very much is because they're friggin' long and they take up a lot of space. But when you're clamping up big projects, big boxes, cabinets, whatever you're building, these things are lifesavers. So some of these I already did the treatment on, you'll see here. So just the sound between the two, this sounds a lot more stout, right? So this is going to be the final product. It's really fancy with just a few pieces of wood and some tape and a little bit of time. So I'll show you how to do this real quick. It's not hard. So the first thing you do, go over to your junk pile and find some 3/4 inch, 1.5 inch stock that's just laying around. This one I used for a sign holder at one point, had a little hook. I used it, I think, for the scouts to, like, when they crossed over, I made a little sign and hung a backpack gift that I bought them off of it. So we're gonna use this now because I don't need the sign holder anymore. And this is taking up space and the hook's kind of cool, so I'll keep that. But this is the kind of stock we're gonna use. Doesn't have to be great. This one's got a big crack in it. It's whatever you got laying around. that you don't mind parting with and using in a clamp. Obviously don't use like good wood. Camera, you're embarrassing yourself. There we go. Perfect. Just like I meant it to be. First thing I'm going to do, we've got our wood sitting over there ready to go. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come back here with a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to take this black plastic cap off the back and just pop that thing out. Comes out like that. Pretty easy. Next thing, this adjustment bar here that slides back and forth, push that and pull it all the way off. We're going to take that off for now. Don't need that. So we're going to leave a little mark on the side here where, as far as our plastic cap goes in, do that first. We're going to retract this clamp all the way back. And when you pull this clamp all the way back, you'll see right here, you can see the housing of this cast iron. It's just sticking out that side. That's what we want. So we can take our wood, kind of push it up to the side there, just till about where it stops. And then we're going to mark it just shy of our mark for the cap. If anybody wants to know exact sizing other than just stick it up and hold it up to there, 22 inches on the dot. Then we're going to cut our mark, cut our piece of wood right on our mark, just like that. All right. Now we've got our piece of wood off to the side. There's going to be some problems. This piece has to go in this hole. One of the main issues is it's 3/4 inch is just wide enough to fit in here. You'll want to probably plane a little bit off. You don't want this expanding outward so that your clamp doesn't actually slide smoothly on it. And the next thing you'll notice is we are way too tall. So we're gonna have to trim this down a bit. I'm just gonna put a little mark right around where it needs to go. Take my marking gauge and then just run a line up. Put your piece in the vise and plane down to our line. I'd say that's a solid 1/4 inch. So to do that, we're gonna use our fancy new number 5 that we just tuned up to be a scrub. Get a little more aggressive than that. Nice, okay. Now I'm going to flip it over. And like I said, I don't want this squeezing out the sides because this is too thick. So we'll take our smoother and just bring down the sides just a little bit. So if you can see in here, the teeth that the other clamp that adjusts rest on are just indentations in this bar. So if you can see them inside, our wood is hitting that indentation. So that means we have to go down a little bit further. To see how much further we need to go down, I'm just gonna rest the clamp up against my bench. And then on this side, I'm just gonna give it a couple love taps. Use a hammer if you want. And if you can see right there, it leaves a little indentation of how far down you need to plane. I'm gonna throw it back in the vise and we'll plane that down just to get that past those ridges. This plane is friggin' awesome. It takes wood down so quick. All right, so just gonna slide that piece in all the way. Press it in, drive it home. like that. And then we can take whatever you want, screwdriver or whatever, and just finish pushing that in all the way. So that already stiffened this whole bar up. Doesn't squeeze anymore, rides really well. The next thing you want to do is make sure that this part, this sliding clamp, still is able to slide freely. If it starts binding anywhere, that may mean you've pushed these sides out too far and you need to just plane that piece of wood down a little bit thinner. But it's just under 3/4 of an inch. In that case, this guy's sliding nicely. So, a couple other things I want to take care of. So, this is the next thing we're going to address. It does slide pretty nice on these, but sometimes these are cheap cast iron. Sometimes they'll get some burrs and things like that in them, so that it kind of drags a little bit when you're sliding it back and forth. If that's the case for you, just take it, throw it in a vise, take a file, and just clean up those edges a little bit. That smoothed it all out, made it nice and smooth. Sometimes you'll get some inside. If you want to, you can run the file down the inside like that. Just ensuring that it slides nice and even. You can do the other side as well. Slide your piece back on. Get your black plastic cap. Put that in place. Make sure that hammers back on. That kind of holds everything down pretty well, but sometimes this can come loose or can come popping off. So what I like to do, throw it down on the bench, put a center punch near the end, give it a little dimple on both sides. That's going to hold that, squeeze that piece in a little bit more. Make sure your clamp still slides right, but that's going to hold that wood in a lot stronger. All right, we are almost done now. So the last thing we need to do, got to take care of these so that it doesn't mar our wood when we clamp it down. So, splinter. To fix the pads, feet, I don't know what they're called in this case. I would say pads, right? How we're going to fix the pads on our clamp is with this. This is just a scrap of 1/8 inch thick plywood. It's like Luan or whatever you want to call it. It's just real thin, cheap plywood. And I save all my scraps. If you do too, I'm sure your wife or significant other probably hates you for it. But this is when it comes in handy, right? Save all this crap. Sometimes I burn stuff. But we're going to use this today to fix this. So I'll show you how. So get 8 sheets of paper. Set it down on the clamp. Put the plywood up against it. Then take a pencil, do this where you guys can see it. Take a pencil, trace around. It's going to give you a rough square like that. Now come back to this side, do the same on this side. So now we've got both of our pieces that we need to cut. Let's throw them in the vise and cut them out. Just take your same file. Clean up the edges. I like to round over the corners just a little bit. So last thing to do, get yourself a roll of double-sided carpet tape. If you don't know what that is, it's basically double-sided tape, but it's super strong. I bought this roll 5 years ago, and I still have plenty of it. So you can literally buy one and probably keep it forever. But it comes in so much handy. It comes in handy big time. It's super strong. It holds to anything. I've used it on these clamps forever and I've never had a piece fall off. So super good stuff. So it will stick to anything. So be very cautious with how you do it or where you put it. So basically what I will do is take a piece. Right, I don't want that. I want that side out. So I'll take my piece, figure out what side you want out, stick it down on the tape, take a razor blade, and then just go around and trim the tape to the pieces. Then make sure that's mounted on there pretty good. We're going to make sure it's really good in a second. Peel the backing off. Then take your 8 pieces of paper, lay it back down there, line it up. Once this is on, it's on. So line it up real well and press to it. You can take your paper off. That paper is going to ensure that everything slides real well. Next, we're going to do the other side. That. Push it down there. Everything's sliding good. So now finally, put those up against each other. Line them up best you can. And just clamp it down on itself. The more pressure you put on this tape, the stronger it's going to hold. Let that clamp on itself for a little while, and you should be good to go. If at this point you want to take your file, if you're super anal retentive and you want it perfect together, you can come on and file these sides, you know, make sure that they're level, stuff like that. All right, final step. These, made it a little too tight, there we go. So these nuts on the end of here.
Got him!
Hey, these nuts. So these nuts on the end, these little acorn nuts here, these are notorious for coming loose. You'll go to clamp down your project and you'll hear one of these things go flying off in the corner of the garage, never to be seen again. And now you've got just this weird thing that you're always like, this is always falling out. So what I do, come in here with a little bit of Loctite, blue or red, your preference. And clamp that thing on there solid. That should do nicely. Do that on both sides and you're good to go. One last thing you can do, I'll do every now and then, I'll put just a little bit of oil in these threads just so that they slide nice. You can get a bunch of dust, sawdust in there, corrosion, and whatnot, so. Run it back and forth a few times. Make sure it's flowing in there real nice. And that's it. You now have the perfect woodworking F-clamp. You spent $9 on it, and what is that? Maybe 5 cents worth of plywood? Not even. It's inexcusable. It's just scrap wood. Piece of 1x2 that you got laying around in the corner, and a couple pieces of scrap plywood, and you now have a solid clamp. Like this thing now is super good. You can clamp this in your bench clamp. So you just saw me do in there. You can clamp this down, not worry about it bending the metal. This thing is solid and stout now. It's a lot heavier. It'll feel better in your hand, and it clamps nicely. And now you don't have to worry about marring your wood. These soft plywood pads is all you need. It'll put enough pressure and give it enough. I mean, obviously, with any clamp, if you crank down at it hard enough, you're gonna mark your wood. But for the most part, that's enough give and enough soft when you're clamping that you're not gonna leave any marks on it. You'll notice there's some glue all over these. Every once in a while I'll come through with like a cheap junk chisel or a flathead screwdriver and pop the glue off. But there are ways to get around that as well. I've heard people will oil this with like, you know, WD-40 or PAM even, olive oil, whatever you got laying around. You can put some oil on these, but you risk then introducing oil into your project. Not a huge fan of that. So I don't tend to do that. I just, once in a while when I get a bunch of glue on there, I'll come through one day with a screwdriver and just pop it off. So you can wrap it in saran wrap when you're doing your glue up. If you know what size you want to do, kind of wrap the, you know, the main area of the bar in saran wrap, and then you can, you know, that's your thing, then clamp it down. And that would get most of the glue off. It's up to you, but it's really not a huge problem. So, and with the way this slides on here, most of the time any kind of glue that I'll get done on there, as soon as you slide that down, it pops it off anyway. So not a big deal. But that is how you make the Paul Sellers Harbor Freight $9.99 bar clamp. Freaking awesome for your garage. Wanted to share that with you because we've got a big project we're coming up doing, but instead of one big build, which I'll probably still do a build video at the end of it all, but I'm gonna like break down smaller videos on how to do the separate parts. We're gonna have mortise and tenon joints. We're gonna have groove and panels. We're gonna have maybe dovetails. I don't know, probably, maybe. There's gonna be a bunch of stuff. So cool stuff coming up, but I'm gonna break it all down into separate little videos. And then in the end, we'll do like a big build video kind of thing, but trying something new. Let me know how you like it. Leave a comment down below. So part of that last video of setting up our number 5 and this is just prepping for that project. If you can tell behind me, there's a bunch of oak, white oak sitting back there. That's the hint. Hint, hint, that's the project. So anyway, that is it for today. If you like this type of content, subscribe down below, give me a comment, thumbs up, do the things. We are quickly getting to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget, if you've subscribed recently and you want to get in on the Kanai Pro Gear Legion 2 or 1 backpack giveaway, find the video I got tagged that's the top of my channel, comment on it, and you can get in on that drawing as well if you want to win that when we get to 1,000 subs. With all that being said, I'll see you on the next one. This is the Jorgensen, I don't know, how big is this?